Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 312, Saturday. Reigning middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis defends his title in a rematch against Sean Strickland. And Zhang Weili defends her strawweight title against undefeated Tatiana Suarez. UFC 312, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Today on CityCast Boise. Trump's push to kill the Department of Education has us wondering if the state is ready to foot the bill or if students will be the one paying the price. And Idaho's book ban is facing a lawsuit from major publishers. Could this mean redemption for the tiny Donnelly library that had to become adults only? Plus, we're sharing our local picks for National Pizza Day and a little comedic relief. It's Friday, February 7th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Hey, it's Friday once again, and joining me today is comedian and comedy producer Brittany Hargis. Thanks so much for being here today, Brittany.
Hey, thanks for having me again, Lindsay.
So, the first story I want us to jump into is a federal story, but definitely will impact us locally, and that is Trump working to dismantle the Department of Education. And this, for people who might think that's a national thing, Idaho schools are heavily dependent on federal money and Department of Education money and guidance. So this is going to be a roller coaster of sorts. And Brittany, you have kids in Idaho schools too. So when you're hearing this news, what are you thinking? What's your takeaway from this?
Well, I just had the one kid because I like to think I'm smart. But in general, I'm not feeling exactly hopeful about the idea of having even less investment in, quote, the most important generation in our future. It's not ideal. We are seeing so many cuts. We're seeing teachers having to pay for more and more things out of pocket. I mean, it's not going to be good. I don't know what else they can possibly cut at this point from an education perspective. But I do just have to wonder if Trump was only cutting it because we happen to have DEI and Department of Education for Idaho. And he's just blanket statement, get rid of it. Let's just not even touch it because those acronyms can be scary sometimes for Trump.
Letters are scary.
Letters are so scary.
And just to add a little perspective for people living in this area, the Nampa School District receives approximately $8 million a year in federal funding. Boise School District receives $28.9 million in federal funds. And West Ada, conservative West Ada, gets 7% of its annual budget, or $34 million a year.
It's a good chunk. It's a really good chunk. And I mean, I genuinely don't understand how they're going to ever make this work when we can't even pass levies for the most part for any of these schools. I mean, we are not going to do well. I think it's hilarious to me that Debbie Critchfield has this top goal of let's teach these children financial literacy. Let's make them ready for the real world. Let's teach them how taxes work and how they need to be budgeting things. And the actual quote from the same department's yeah, we're going to need to take some time to better understand how this proposal might affect our operations. And it's girl, you're broke. You're going to start teaching these children how to DoorDash. Yeah. There's not going to be a good outlook. How taxes are going to work. What we're teaching our children is, here's what you're going to do. You're going to pay us, and then we're going to give you absolutely nothing back. I hope that feels fair to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I don't think people realize, I think people say yeah, state control, these kind of thought-ending cliches, yeah, we should have more control at the state. The federal government shouldn't be involved. The federal government being involved is what is keeping our schools functioning. We have to be really real about that. And it is going to impact your life. Because one of the solutions that I've heard lightly floated or discussed by educators and people involved in the education system is that for sure schools would have to go to a 4-day school week.
Yeah.
Because they're still going to need the same amount of teachers. They're still going to need, the same amount of educators, but maybe they can save on heating bills. They can save on power costs. They can save on buses. But if you're a parent, that means you are going to pay more for daycare. You are going to pay more for babysitters, or you need to not work Fridays now. Like, this is going to impact you.
Yeah, it's not pretty. Like, I think about it too. I see kids all the time as it is when they leave school. Like, they're riding home from school by themselves. They're walking home from school by themselves. They're waiting for mom and dad to get off work. So what we're actually doing too is, I think the reality is we're actually putting children more at risk of getting into more trouble. Like, it's not just going to stop with impacting the workforce. It's going to impact, like, how do kids turn out when they have more time without structure and more time without activities that allow them healthy alternatives. I mean, as a child who was left alone a lot, spoiler alert to anyone out there, like, your kids end up a stand-up comedian. Like, it's not pretty. We're going to have a very entertaining generation is what's about to happen.
Yeah, a lot more of those, but you're really funny. Well, like... The trauma does make you funny, I guess.
We're going to need good therapists. So maybe that's really the ultimate outlook here is get into therapy if you can.
So, Brittany, I'm really curious. Do you think, let's say, Department of Education goes away, that money's going away, that direction is going away. Will parents in Idaho, will these, the citizens in these school districts step up and cover the cost, pay more in taxes to support our school system? Or do you think that's not going to happen?
Absolutely not. Like, we can see that doesn't happen. Like, we've shut down actual schools with asbestos because we didn't pull the trigger on levies that could have saved them. Like, we let buildings crumble here. Of course, we're going to let our kids crumble too. That's not changing. If anything that we can see in our state actions, we definitely invest more in infrastructure and real estate than we do human beings. Our kids aren't getting help.
Yeah, well, and I feel like the conversation we have every year is like, it's so expensive. They want like a budget sheet like you do with your taxes every year where it's like, I put this much money in and I got this exact value out. And that's not how things like education work. It's a long-term society supporting investment. It's not something where at the end of the year you're like, well, I'm getting this much work out of these kids, this much value. It doesn't, everything in life doesn't work that way.
I think at the end of the day though, like, that's like a mindset shift is people who are pushing for this agenda and pushing for like cutting and taking care of that. They don't see these as little human beings. They see them as products. Like, these are products that are going to be part of a bigger scheme when all things are considered, and it's just not worth it to them. It's really unfortunate.
So one thing, maybe a counterpoint, or I don't know if it's exactly a counterpoint, but a shift is Idaho is 51st in the nation for per student spending. So we are spending...
And like that right there, we're already blowing Idahoans' mind. Like, what do you mean 51 states?
I was going to say, somebody's going to be like, that's not how it works. Yeah, just like, I got to count them. But we're ranked 18th when it comes to education. Now, our graduation rate has dipped a bit, and there are some issues with that. But what do you think about this argument that like the U.S. does spend a lot on education, and our outcomes aren't always great? And so is there potentially some benefit in turning it over to the state in your perspective that could be positive? Or is it, we've got this federal crutch and that is what is helping us get the results we're getting?
I think it's hard to even like start with like the ranking system and using that as the metric, because I think if you ask any teacher, hey, how do we feel about testing? How do we feel about state testing? Any teacher is going to immediately be like, here's the problem. We've spent so much time on this piece of it that we end up focusing on the wrong aspects. And so I think even our way in which we grade ourselves is flawed. So the ranking itself is not very helpful in the first place. Not that we shouldn't have a way to judge it, but we need to fix the way we're judging ourselves first and foremost. I think we have the wrong people in charge setting the rules in the wrong way. And we're not actually teaching kids the things they need that they can then take out into the world to better the situation that they were put into.
Yeah, no, I think ultimately, whether the Department of Education stays or goes, I don't have faith that Idaho legislators have children's best interest at heart and are going to provide a system that would be a positive educational experience for them. So no, taking it from the federal government, I don't have more faith in our legislature than in the entirety of the bureaucracy of the Department of Education.
No, I do not trust my child with those people.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Which Manning brother will win the FanDuel Kick of Destiny 3 on Super Bowl Sunday? Peyton or Eli? Watch the showdown live on Super Bowl Sunday. Plus, new customers bet $5 and get $200 if your bet wins. Only on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Iowa. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus vest that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF.
There's been a really interesting development in the Idaho book ban laws, and that was that some book publishers, some authors, the Donnelly Public Library, and several Idaho parents and students are suing Idaho officials over their library materials law. And, you know, once again, we're getting another, what will likely be a costly lawsuit because of our legislators' decisions to embrace bigotry and hate. But I'm really curious, what do you think about this lawsuit? And do you think it will successfully challenge Idaho law as it currently stands?
Okay, so I think the first thing we need to talk about is Donnelly. Let's first get into Donnelly. Donnelly itself has a population of 250 people. So this is not a big town. The fact that there's even a lawsuit that involves Donnelly is amazing to me. So their library is 1,024 square feet. It is a very small library. It is basically, it honestly just sounds like an escape room with books. I don't know that it's actually something that had a lot of materials that anyone could have found offensive in the first place. But our legislature decided that it fell under the same parameters of possibly having porn in the library. And so I'm really glad to see that publishers are getting together with a relatively small community and saying, we're going to help them because they are unfairly being punished right now. That's a very small library. They barely have anything. And so for them, it wasn't a matter of just putting books in a different section. It was way more significant. Their rule is, okay, if you're a kid, you cannot come in here without an adult. You have to have an adult with you, or you have to sign significant waivers to be part of this club, basically.
Yeah, essentially they made the library adults only.
Yes, it is an adults-only library, and it's not even the fun kind of adults-only activity. It's not even for what you hope it's for. It's just regular books.
Yeah, you just got to run in there and get the Dogman books for your kids yourself. You can't send them in there.
Exactly.
And just to refresh everyone's memory, the book banning bill was House Bill 710. And the reason that Donnelly felt that they had to become an adults-only space is because if a child obtained any materials that the parents deemed were harmful to them. So this could be walking to a section of the library and grabbing a book. It was very vague and not specific about what that meant. That then the parents would have a cause of action to sue the library, and they would sue them for $250 in statutory damages, but they could also get other damages. So this would be incredibly expensive just from a legal standpoint for for these libraries. And so bigger libraries, Idaho Falls libraries, Boise libraries, libraries in Meridian, Nampa, they have multiple areas. So there's areas where they're like, please don't have kids be here, or
this section.
Yeah, they have sections.
Totally.
But smaller libraries like Donnelly, like you said, like what are they supposed to do? It's like a one-room schoolhouse. It's a library. Where are you supposed to put those books? Or could a child look over and see a book, and the parents they saw a book that had a rainbow, and in Idaho apparently rainbows are a sex symbol now, and so I'm going to sue the library. Like they were put in an impossible situation.
And it's the unknown, right? Because it could also be like something as simple as my child saw To Kill a Mockingbird in this library. That's a book that has caused issues. That is what we're talking about. Is it's so vague that even books that all of us grew up reading as like required reading for classes, those are now being considered dangerous, harmful, and somehow falling under the label of like harmful to minors or somehow involving sexuality. And it's wild to me because like I was a closeted little lesbian. Like I was a little gay kid that like I never even thought about going to the library to read something like cool and exciting to me. Like if I wanted to read something that made me feel anything, I went to church and read the Bible. Like Psalms was lit. I read some really good things about ravishing breasts and things like that. Like it was the Bible for me that did it.
And that's what's so wild and ridiculous about this is that's not where kids are going to look for any material that a reasonable adult would consider harmful or maybe just inappropriate for them at that age or stage of development. And I loved, like, Melinda Lowe, author of Last Night at the Telegraph Club, specifically said, House Bill 710 in Idaho is clearly trying to stigmatize queer identities and queer sexuality. And I want to make clear to everyone, but to my readers especially, that there is nothing shameful about queer sexuality. There's nothing shameful about being queer, period, end quote. And that was what came up time and time again, is the books that they were showing were either books about, like, my developing body, or books like, Sally Has Two Mommies. And those were the books that people kept testifying about, as if, here's the issue I always come to is if they think that your sexuality is so inborn or heterosexuality is such the norm, such the default, then a children's book shouldn't be a problem, right? Like a book with a rainbow shouldn't be a problem. If there is a default that people should fall into, reading a book isn't going to change that. Like, I don't know. I've read Captain Underpants to my kids. I still wear full clothes. I don't walk around in underwear. So clearly not being convinced to change who I am because of a children's book.
And to the other side of it, I never got a chance to read that stuff as a kid. And again, look how I turned out. Like, zero access to the library as a child, and I still ended up gay. So I don't know that we're actually preventing anything that they're trying to prevent at this point.
Really quickly, I'm really curious about your take on this, because I'm bi. I didn't even know like what that was growing up. There was no access.
Same.
There was no library materials. I was just like, I truly thought, I'm like, sometimes Satan tempts me to be a lesbian. Like,
Absolutely.
I didn't know. And so I didn't read about it. It's not like I learned about it online. I was in college and somebody said it. And I was like, what is that? And they explained it. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
Oh, there's a word for that. Okay. And so, like, it's not books causing the issue. It's not information having the issue. But you know what would have been really helpful? Having a book with a character I could relate to. So I didn't think I was just this terrible sinner anomaly.
Yeah. And so you didn't end up Googling things. I remember at a very young age, I was Ask Jeeving. I was Googling things I probably shouldn't have. And had I had access to a library, I probably wouldn't have been exposed to things I shouldn't have been exposed to at a young age. I would have had healthy, appropriate resources at a public space that were completely okay. And instead, like, I found things I probably shouldn't have at a very young age.
Yeah, materials curated by librarians who love kids and value their job, value the community, and would have steered us in helpful but very wholesome directions where we could have gotten knowledge, like you said, without delving into like weird places. Yeah, it's...
Yep.
Oh, it is never ending. But I really also want to echo what you said. I hope that this lawsuit is effective because that seems to be the only language that our attorney general will listen to at this point.
I agree.
Okay, everything's heavy right now. There's a lot going on. It's almost nonstop. So National Pizza Day is on Sunday, February 9th. And I just want to give a shout out because this is my favorite pizza place in the entire Treasure Valley. I know that's a big statement, but it's
please.
True.
Yes,
it's Proper Pizza in Meridian. And I'd heard about it. It's tucked away in like a little strip mall and it's phenomenal. I was surprised how good it is. It was so good. I posted about it on my socials because I was like, hey, they didn't even pay me, but this is like one of the best pizzas I've ever had in my life.
Are we talking thin crust or what are we?
Yeah, it's okay. To be like full disclosure, I am a Chicago pizza girly. Anyway, this is thin pizza, so that's not normally my style, but it is so good. So they have an Idaho potato pizza. And I know that sounds like so cliche, but it is really good. There's this green sauce on it. I don't know what it is. I would drink that. It's
really
delicious. I'm not sure what's in it. And they just do like a swirl of it over the pizza. It's the best sauce I've ever had on a pizza. I also had the barbecue chicken pizza. It was phenomenal. So good. And on their crust, they put sesame seeds. Now I was a little nervous because textures can be a thing for me. And I don't know. I don't love sesame seeds. I don't know. I guess I don't really have feelings about sesame seeds.
You don't have strong opinions about sesame seeds?
I don't. I know.
What kind of influencer are you, Lindsay?
I know. Sorry. I will figure out my way when it comes to sesame seeds. So I was a little nervous because I was like, oh, that might be weird. It is so good. Like it adds a really nice, delicious, like nutty flavor. And it's just really delicious. Like, and they put like butter and garlic or something. They put something on it. It's just, every bite of it was so good. Like I went with my husband and we were eating, we just like stopped by kind of, last minute. We're like, well, let's grab some pizza. And we were just staring at each other like, this is really good. This is so good. So that if you are looking to celebrate National Pizza Day at the same day the Super Bowl is happening, I would highly recommend Proper Pizza in Meridian.
Proper Pizza.
Okay, Brittany, what is your pick of the week?
Well, shameless self-promotion. My pick of the week is going to be the much needed need to laugh this weekend. So I've got 2 comedy shows. Both are going to be downtown. The first is at the Balcony Club tonight. It's all dark jokes. So if you like dark humor, this is where you can find kindred spirits that are going to be laughing at things that they also should not be laughing at. It's going to be a really good lineup, a really fun time. It's the Balcony Club, so safe, great place to be. And then tomorrow night, Saturday night, we're looking at going underground to Liquid Laughs. Have you been downtown to Liquid?
Okay, I didn't. Are they doing comedy again?
Comedy is back at Liquid, so definitely start paying attention. Shows are happening there basically every weekend. It's a really cute room, very vibey, great drinks, great food, and really good shows. But you'll see Femme Fatale Saturday night.
Oh, and that's I've been a couple times to Femme Fatale. That is a great show.
It's a fantastic show produced by Crystal Moore. Absolutely love her. But come check out one of the shows sometime. We'd love to have you.
I love that as a pick of the week. I know there's a lot of it can feel overwhelming and you can feel disillusioned. Like, what can I do? How much can I help? So sometimes being able to just laugh and release some of that tension before you jump back into it the next week is so good. So good.
Yeah, laugh so you don't cry is the goal.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter with help this week from Adrian Gonzalez, and our music is by Up Is the Down Is the. If you enjoyed our show today, leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back on Monday with Capital Chatter. Catch you then.